Elias wasn't like other photographers. He didn't chase sunsets or smiling faces. He chased decay. He hunted for the beauty in rust, rot, and ruin. His obsession led him to places others avoided, forgotten corners of the world where time had stopped and nature was reclaiming what it had lost. And that's how he found himself standing before the skeletal remains of the Blackwood Mill. The locals in the nearby town, their faces etched with a generational fear, had warned him away. They spoke in hushed tones of the weaver. Her real name was lost to history, but her legend was woven into the very fabric of the town. She was a mill worker, they said, betrayed by a lover who promised her the world but gave her only heartbreak. Consumed by grief, she let her hair grow, a black, mourning veil that never saw a pair of scissors. It grew and grew, a living monument to her sorrow, until one day, the story goes, it became her tomb. The sheer weight and volume of it, they claimed, suffocated her, and then, in its relentless growth, strung-led the very mill where she drew her last breath. Elias, of course, didn't believe in ghosts. He saw it only a story, a perfect backdrop for his art. The perfect shot of decay. With his camera slung over his shoulder, he pushed open the groaning, splintered door and stepped inside. The change in atmosphere was immediate and unsettling. The air, heavy and damp, clung to him like wet wool, a musty, organic smell, like a forest floor after a week of rain, filled his nostrils. Sunlight struggled to pierce the grime-caked windows, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to dance at the edge of his vision. He lifted his camera, framing a shot of a rusted loom, its gears frozen in time. That's when he noticed them. Hanging from the high rafters were long, thin, black strands. At first glance, he dismissed them as old, thick cobwebs, blackened by years of soot and neglect. But as he moved closer, he saw they were different. They were too uniform, too dark, and they swayed with a strange cohesiveness, even though there was no breeze inside the mill. Curiosity overriding his unease, Elias reached out and touched one. The texture was startling. It was coarse, almost like horsehair, but it felt strangely warm to the touch, as if it held some residual, living heat. He pulled his hand back, a shiver tracing a path down his spine. This wasn't a cobweb. He decided to explore the lower levels, hoping to find the main engine room. The basement stairs creaked and groaned under his weight, each step a protest from the rotting wood. He switched on his powerful flashlight, its beam cutting a sharp cone through the oppressive darkness. Down here, the smell was stronger, more cloying. The air was so thick, he could almost taste it. His flashlight beam flickered once, twice, then steadied. He swept it across the basement, and his heart hammered against his ribs. The walls, they weren't stone. They weren't brick or wood. They were covered, from floor to ceiling, in a dense, matted tapestry of black hair. Millions upon millions of strands, woven together so tightly they formed a solid surface. And it was moving. The entire wall seemed to be pulsating, a slow, rhythmic, in and out motion, like the chest of a sleeping giant. It was breathing. Panic, cold, and sharp, seized him. The stories weren't just stories. He had to get out. Now, he spun around, scrambling back towards the stairs, his boots slipping on the damp floor. But the doorway, the simple opening he had just walked through, was gone. In its place stood a solid curtain of black hair, stretching from the floor to the ceiling, swaying gently. There was no gap, no seam, no way through. He was trapped. A sound whispered from the deepest shadows of the basement. Not a footstep, but a soft, slithering rustle. From the darkness, she emerged. The weaver. She didn't walk. She drifted, gliding forward on a sea of her own endless tresses that spread out across the floor like a royal shroud. Her hair was her everything. It covered her face completely. A solid black waterfall that cascaded over her shoulders and pooled around her, trailing off into the darkness behind her, seemingly without end. Elias was frozen, his mind screaming but his body refusing to obey. He tried to take a step back, and a bizarre thing happened. On the wall beside him, the matted hair shifted, mimicking his movement perfectly, creating a dark, hairy silhouette that mirrored his own. He flinched, and his hair shadow flinched with him. The entire room was watching him, responding to him. Then he felt Italiano a light tickle on his ankle. He glanced down. A single, dark strand had snaked out from the floor and wrapped itself around his leg. It was impossibly thin, yet it had sliced clean through the tough denim of his jeans as if it were paper. Before he could react, another strand joined it, tightening its grip. Then another, and another. They moved with a terrifying serpentine graze, wrapping around his calves, his knees, pulling him off balance. He fell hard against one of the looms still standing in the basement. His hand brushed against the thread still set up on the machine. He recoiled in horror. This wasn't cotton. It wasn't wool. It was hair. The same coarse, black hair that covered the walls, the floor, the ceiling. He wasn't just in her tomb. He was in her workshop. And the spools were filled with the hair of those who had come before him, their lives woven into a grotesque tapestry. Despair washed over him as the strands coiled higher, around his waist, his chest, constricting his breath. The darkness was closing in. Through the suffocating mass, he saw a shape move within the curtain of hair that was her face. A pale, almost translucent hand emerged, parting the black veil just enough to reveal what lay beneath. It wasn't a face. It was a mouth. Lips, pale and bloodless, curved into a semblance of a smile. The last thing Elias heard, a whisper that felt like it was spoken directly inside his mind, was, "You will make a fine weave." Then, the darkness consumed him, and the blackwood mill fell silent once more, waiting for the next thread. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed Tales of Inescapable Dread, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We'll see you in the shadows.